While South Africa continues to commemorate the role of the class of 1976, many young people believe that 29 years under democracy, the government is still failing the youth. It's nearly half a century since students took a stand against the apartheid government for the introduction of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction. Now, a new study by the Rhodes Institute of Social and Economic Research, in collaboration with Human Sciences Research Council, looked at how township youth see their future life situation in the post-COVID-19 era. The discussions provided an opportunity for youth to share and compare with others the experiences of disappointment and failure, of times when they had felt hopeless, with the worst cases of hopelessness resulting in alcohol and even substance abuse, which was reportedly widespread amongst township youth. So to tell us more about the study, we're joined by Dr. Benjamin Roberts, the Research Director at the Human Sciences Research Council, and Professor Valerie Muller, who is the lead head of the research. A very good afternoon to the both of you. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon and happy Youth Day to everyone.
Perhaps...
Thank you for inviting us.
All right, thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doctor. Perhaps, Prof, you can speak to the study and the methodology used. Perhaps how many people also participated in the study, just to set the context of the conversation.
I'll start. We wanted to explore what young people in our local township in Makanda, Grahamstown, which is quite close to Rhodes University, how they feel about hope, what hope means to them. And we conducted some focus group discussions, which were open, asking about hope, how important it is in their lives. And it was part of a larger program of research using mixed methods and up to a national survey, which my colleague Benjamin Roberts will tell you about. So it was just to explore initially, because survey questions often don't translate internationally. So we wanted to know, if hope is understood in South Africa among youth as it is in other nations. If our respondents in the discussions, they said it was important. Without hope, there would be no future for youth. And they said it was very important to have drive and push. You also had to work on your hopes, your dreams for the future coming true. However, when we talked about their goals, which were mainly focused on completing education, finding employment, and in some instances when hopes were dashed, some of the youth were very entrepreneurial, and they wanted to start their own businesses to provide a future for themselves and their families and their communities. But what surprised us was before we asked about, dashed hopes and hopelessness, they mentioned that hopes are two-sided. So you also have disappointments and you have to overcome these disappointments. And even when they had setbacks, our discussants said that they would try again, and they were hopeful for the future in spite of everything. And they looked mainly to family, parents, trusted people to help them to regain confidence. And I think that maybe sets us on that we can look at the broader picture among all South African youth. Maybe I should ask my colleague Ben if he can tell us more about the South African social attitude surveys and just other surveys that look to youth and the future, including maybe the elections next year.
No, absolutely. Dr. Benjamin, let me bring you into the conversation just on the back of what Professor Muller's echoed. I wonder if you could talk to, based on the findings unearthed, how the promises of 1994 fared up. I'm also just looking at us as a country going into elections next year. And as we know, there has been a decline in youth participation in elections. 30% of youth eligible at this point participating in the last elections. How do you think the youth at this point gets to exercise their right to vote and perhaps play their part in seeing the change that they want?
Yes, I think the kind of themes that Valerie has talked to through the focus group discussions in Makanda resonate very much with the large national picture that we've seen over time. We've been at the HSRC doing survey of public opinion for 20 years now, and really monitoring changes in present evaluations, as well as looking at future outlook and monitoring how those are changing and what's driving them. What we find particularly is that South Africans are dispositionally very hopeful and optimistic. I think it's part of our makeup in terms of trying to cope and deal with the varied challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis. So that's very strongly there. It's been there for most of the past 20 years of observation that we've done. What we've seen, though, is particularly in the last decade, that optimism has been shaking a little bit. And in the last 5 years, particularly including during the COVID period, its immediate aftermath, we've seen that there's been quite a substantial decline in that optimism. The youth, as well as older citizens, still look to the better day. The attempts to try and pick yourself up and find ways and means of trying to find opportunities for a better life. But increasingly, they're finding it difficult to maintain that optimism. In coming through to the second part of your question, we do a lot of survey-based work for the Electoral Commission, and we're currently doing a big study on youth and their electoral predispositions. What we find, and I think a lot has been made of youth apathy, and I really want to push back against that. The youth are not apathetic. In fact, our surveys show that quite a significant share of the youth believe in the duty to vote and feel that voting is important. What they're struggling with is, and it's some fundamental questioning going on, is it working? And what we see is real concerns around those same kind of themes that Valerie talked to, the themes around educational opportunity, around issues of employment opportunity, as well as around the quality and character of service provision in the places that they live. And given those recurring disappointments that many of them face, the sort of token optimism is leading to some degree of that negative side of hope that Valerie talked about, the concerns and the effects of multiple dashed hopes over time, how that accumulates and how it can create a sense of hopelessness. So I think that's what's playing out, and it's certainly having a bearing on electoral predispositions, despite a lot of youth still believing in duty and the importance of voting. I think also current politics of the day, like the functioning of coalitions, a lot of our youth are saying that puts dampers their appetite for voting. So there's a whole range of factors that are shaping their sort of concern about whether voting, does my vote make a difference?
Dr. Roberts, let me interject there. I wonder if we could also look at what was unearthed through the research, and perhaps look at the collateral damage of transformation for the youth at this point, based on the burdens that they've had to bear regarding the decisions that had been made. I'm asking this because I also want to look at the importance of perhaps also including youth in decision-making processes, which will affect them as the future labour force and future of the country.
Yeah, the work that we've done has actually asked questions about what would motivate you to come out and increasingly vote. And one of the things that they do refer to is that issue about being, more inclusion, issues around, and we actually asked them what particular aspects around that, and they're very keen to, what actually in their own voices, they said that if messages around exercising one's power, issues about taking charge of one's destiny, issues about using the ballot and the vote as a way of achieving that really is the one thing that they still latch onto around electoral politics. I think youth representation more broadly in parties is something that is often referred to as well. And I think certain parties fare better at that than others, but certainly those are the kind of narrative themes that they will speak to when we talk about what might change it, apart from more opportunity and better quality of services, because they're particularly negative around the functioning of institutions at present.
Prof. Moller, let me bring you back into the conversation. On the back of what Dr. Roberts has also just echoed, I wonder if we could look forward, or perhaps at the current reality and project forward. There have been a number of youth programs that have been implemented, and I wonder to this, how effective they've been to date in assisting the youth effectively.
I think there's such a large number of youth that the programs don't reach everyone. Yeah. But we keep on hearing about how youth have taken initiatives and have gone with them. But I think more has to be done. What came out of our small focus group study is that the youth felt they hadn't been able to speak about the moments when they were hopeless because things hadn't worked out. There had been setbacks, either that they didn't have finance. During COVID, of course, a lot lost their loved ones, family members who were breadwinners. But what I think is hopeful is, for instance, the Daily Maverick is now publishing a page where some youth have made it on their own, have become entrepreneurs, have taken, whatever has been offered. And very often they've been helped by the community, their families, and they have become, successful. And we heard through our small group that some of the youth said they hadn't been able to share their hopeless moments, and they hoped to talk with fellow youth in the townships to have a platform where they could talk about their hopes for the future and also access some assistance. And I think South African radio is very helpful. It communicates with youth where the opportunities are, and many young people have grasped these opportunities and are still very positive about their outlook on the future.
All right, I'm going to have to leave the conversation there in sake of interest of time, but thank you for your time with us here on the SABC on Youth Day. We're just obviously looking at Professor Valerie Moller and Dr. Benjamin Roberts, who've been speaking to a study by the Rhodes Institute of Social and Economic Research in collaboration with the Human Sciences Research Council, looking at how township youth see their future life situation. This is in a post-COVID-19 era. Again, thank you to the both of them for sharing those sentiments.